purchased the very first one. I'm living in it right now. Looking for the next one, a reasonable price range and a good location, and just makes sense, right? I don't want to purchase a property that's going to be, in terms of the mortgage, it's going to be way higher than I can actually rent it out for.
What's up, everyone? This is Nate Oboh, host of the Ekabo Home Financial Freedom Mastermind podcast. And on episode today, we are joined by Nate Oboh, who is a real estate investor out of Nashville that has already purchased his first rental property, which he's living in today, but he plans to move out and rent that. And he's looking to purchase a second and then continue to grow from there. Nate is actually one of the investors in a flip that we have going on in Atlanta, and he is actively trying to reach that financial freedom while working his W-2. And so without further ado, we're going to jump right into the episode. Nate, how you doing, man?
What's up, Nate?
You heading
Can you
home?
hear me?
I can hear you.
Yeah, I'm heading home right now, but I was like, today I got to join, man. Don't work.
Fair enough. The last couple of weeks, it's been one-offs. Literally, last 4 weeks, I've had one person each time. So it's almost been like a one-on-one session.
Oh, no way. That's what's up, though.
It is. It's kind of cool because you can get into the details and really talk through some things, which is awesome. But what we were talking about before, we never continued that conversation, right? So this is good. You're going to have your money working for you in the background. But you also mentioned wanting to pick up an investment property potentially.
Yeah, definitely. I never really wanted to purchase it as an investment property, but also wanted to purchase most of my investment properties as a primary residence.
Smart.
So I purchased the very first one. I'm living in it right now. Looking for the next one that's in, a reasonable price range and a good location, and just makes sense, right? I don't want to purchase a property that's going to be, in terms of the mortgage, it's going to be way higher than I can actually rent it out for.
No.
So those are the things I'm looking at right now. But I'm on my path on purchasing the second property, and there's just really, I think, where some confusion is coming into my mind is knowing the limitation of how much capital I have, right? Like after my second purchase, it's going to be very interesting to see, okay, where do I go from here? Do I keep doing this for the next couple of years without really having an opportunity to accelerate from the amount of purchases that I can make? I'm just trying to get, and I remember me kind of talking to you, like, what's the best path for that? Do I keep doing what I'm doing? Do I consider Airbnb to kind of generate more capital and then have an opportunity to invest in other properties? Just trying to get a direction from someone who's kind of been through the phase and the stage that I've been on.
Man, we are all on this journey together. You know what I mean? So we're all still trying to figure it out. But just based on what we've talked about in the past, I would opt for exactly what you're doing. If you're able to once a year make that move, that's amazing. And then also put your money to work elsewhere. Two things. One, once you move out of this house and move into the next one, you're going to be able to rent this house that you have out. You're planning to keep that house, right? The condo that you have?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, so you're going to be able to rent that out. And after 2 years, you're going to be able to count that income. I think you're going to be fine. Usually I don't even try to think too far. Like, hey, okay, if I get this 8 unit, how are they going to qualify me for the 16 unit a year from now? I wouldn't worry about that piece. You always typically find a way, right? So I would focus on getting that next property, which you're doing. And then we'll cross the bridge of, hey, from a financing standpoint, what do we have to do to acquire the next one when that time comes? I can tell you that for me, I didn't hit that ceiling, and I'm still actually moving along pretty well, but I didn't hit that ceiling in Louisville until I went to purchase something that was bigger than, 4 units, right? And that's when I had to figure out how to use commercial financing. And it's not that hard to figure out the financing piece for the different properties, especially if you find a deal. The main piece is finding a deal. And the best financing you're going to be able to get is exactly what you're trying to do, which is if you just go and live in the unit. And we talked about it before, right? But would you be open to living in, say, a duplex, a triplex, or a quadplex as your next purchase?
Yes, I would be totally open to a duplex, because initially when I was purchasing this very first property, that was my focus was trying to find one, but I wasn't lucky enough to get one. Get one into my hand. So even on the second property, as much as I am looking out for new construction and things like that, but I'm definitely open to a duplex, because I think from building that capital standpoint, that definitely would be the better option.
Nice. Yeah. If we're able to find one of those, that's a quick way to accelerate. even, and we talked about it before, but even a single family with an in-law suite, imagine that, right? Just being able to get a single family house that has maybe a bedroom and a bathroom and a basement, or a bedroom and a bathroom that could be separated out. Maybe people aren't looking for that. And you could Airbnb that and basically pay your mortgage to save up for the next investment. That's what I'm doing currently, right? So I think those two options, if you're having trouble finding the duplex, triplex, I know Nashville is tough for that. I would look at single family with an in-law suite or guest suite. And if you have a realtor that you're working with and you tell them that clear criteria, they will be able to set you up with an alert that will let you know when those pop up so you can take a look at them.
Yeah, definitely will look into that. I'm not sure if I have to kind of make sure that I get my realtor to start looking at those things right now, because I haven't as much, because I've looked at a lot of floor plans over the last year, and I haven't stumbled on one that had an in-law suite yet.
Yep. That clear criteria is definitely what you're looking for, because the more people you can tell, like when I was moving out here, I told the realtor I was working with exactly what I was looking for. Anybody I talked to, exactly what I was looking for. And we were able to see a couple good deals, and I was able to close on one. So yeah, and you're buying at the perfect time, right? In the winter, this is basically until we hit like the April, May timeframe. People that are listing their house right now are doing it for some other reason. They probably have to move for work, or something's going on that they're listing it in the winter.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's what my realtor was telling me as well, that I may be in right now, buying will probably be better now than later or earlier in the year. So that's if there's any available homes.
Yep. As far as just mindset and kind of your goals moving forward, would you want to manage these properties yourself to kind of learn and put systems in place to begin with? Or would you immediately start with property management?
No, I definitely want to start off kind of learning exactly what all that entails to kind of manage my own property before kind of pushing that responsibility off to a management company there. So definitely the start would be to kind of take it on.
Okay. Have you looked into like software and things that you might use for that?
No, I haven't. Are there any suggestions?
Absolutely. From a system perspective, I used to use something called Buildium, like build a building, and then IUM, buildium.com. It's a little more expensive of a software, but are you still on the road, Nate?
No, I'm at home now.
Okay, I'm going to share my screen. So I used to use something called Buildium. And what it does is it allows you to automate just about everything, right? So I wasn't collecting any cash, any checks, tenants paid online. You were able to screen tenants through their software and actually get like background criminal. It was all very professional. And you had your own website in which you were able to take maintenance requests, and everything was in writing. So when I would have tenants, two things. One, I used a professional software, which I'd highly recommend, and I'm more than happy to sit down and walk you through that when you're ready, when you rent something out. And two, I made sure that I screened the tenants very harsh up front, because the worst thing you can have is a problem tenant, right? It's almost better to have a vacant house than to have it occupied by somebody who is just not going to take care of it the way that we do. And so after screening people, I'd look for certain criteria. One, no past evictions, right? No whatsoever, none of those, no criminal record. Two, you need to have a 600 credit score or better, right? If you don't, I would require a cosigner, right? Because there's students that don't have any. I didn't have credit until, like 7-8 years ago, right before graduating. And then also I call the previous landlords and I actually talk to them and I ask them like, hey, would you rent to this person again? Just to verify they didn't write down their friend's name or number or anything like that. And so what you're looking at is the final step in the process that I highly recommend to everybody. And I can send this to you when you're ready. It's called rent talk. And I don't know if you've ever had a landlord sit down and do this with you, but this helped me avoid so many nightmare tenants, to the point where some of the tenants I put into the units before leaving Louisville, when I was still managing the properties myself, stayed there for the last 4 years that I haven't even been there, and they just stayed on. So the way that we do it is I'd start walking them through this and just let them know, hey, you're an important part of the business. We're proud of our performance, many referrals, and we want to meet your housing needs. We give them our mission statement, right? And I pulled this all from some books and things that I read, but the goal, I make it clear at the beginning, our goal is to provide amazing housing for you, clean. We want people that are clean, responsible, are going to make payments. And we are trying to keep people in our house for a minimum of 3 years. We want you to want to stay here, right? And so we're going to do our best to make that happen. Now, this is important. I start talking through, hey, people may not know this. This is the lifespan and how long things should last, right? So if we just freshly painted your house, that paint should not be beat up and crushed after 1 year or 2 years, right? It should last 7 to 10 years. If you look at residential homes, people's houses aren't destroyed unless kids are running their hands along it and all that stuff. We talk about wear and tear, some of the things that will be reasonable wear and tear. And hey, we're good with that. We can replace those. We talk about the maintenance. Hey, it's up to you to let us know if something's messed up. Please let us know. Submit our maintenance request. We cannot read your mind. And then we get into some of the costs, right? Hey, if you're locked out, if you destroy something or mess something up in the unit, that's okay. It's fine. We can just charge you for the fixing, but you have to let us know. And then this part is important as well, because people try to put everything on the landlords, right? So believe it or not, if you see this part in the top right here, this ham hock bone, this actually happened. A tenant called us in, said they had a clogged toilet. We sent a plumber in and they pulled out a bone, like a bone, right? And so of course we billed that back to the tenant and they tried to argue with us, but we added this in after that because there's no argument there. And what this does is it weeds out anybody that you may not want in the property, because this is after they've gone through everything else. This is like a final step, almost like in a job interview. It weeds out like, hey, is this person really wanted, right? And so this is a screenshot of the system, Nate. And you can see, I call it Ad Homes back in the day. You can see this is an actual screenshot from when I was doing it back in 2017, before I moved to property management. Boom, on the first, the rent was charged. The tenant can make a payment. If it's late, payment's due on the first. If it hits midnight and it's the second, one-time late fee of 10% added to it, plus $5 per day, and an automatic eviction note would get sent out as well. Rental agreement, we'd walk through that, answer any questions. And then of course, you got to have some incentives in there, right? So the incentive structure that we used helped keep tenants long-term. And it was more around, hey, if you've been good for 12 months, you get a discount, 24 months, 36 months. This is kind of a lot for not even having rent in the place yet, but when you're ready, just know, there's some stuff out there.
Yeah, got you. That was very, very helpful.
Good.
So now the other follow-up question, thanks a lot for that, because I've heard a lot of the stories about how, like you mentioned, not having the right tenant is even more painful than having your house not occupied, your property not occupied. So
Yeah.
Definitely gonna make sure that I go and make the due diligence there to kind of vet through the tenants before I actually bring them in, right? Now, the question I wanted to ask you around property management in your own experience, and I'm guessing you've been on both ends where you've managed your own properties versus pushing off the responsibility to a management company. What has been the advantage of doing either or, right? And then what has been the disadvantages of being your own manager of the properties? Talking about stress, time, and anything like that.
So this is a great question, by the way. Nobody is going to treat your property or your personal belongings the way that you would, right? It's just a matter of fact. You would value it a lot more. You understand all the quirks around it, and you understand the sacrifice it took to buy it. And so when you manage your own property, I would say that you could do probably a better job than 90% of the property managers out there, just because you're going to care a lot more. These dollars are truly impacting you. When it's $1,000 rent payment that's coming to you, right? As opposed to a property manager where maybe $100 of that is coming to them per month. Think about that for a second. $1,200 a year to manage $1,000 rental. That's kind of tough. And so when you have, let's call it less than 10 units, and especially if you live in the same city, I think there's a large benefit to managing it yourself. And even when you start out managing yourself, so you know what it takes and you know the systems that should be in place to manage it well. And you also can understand the lingo when the property managers start talking about, hey, we need to evict somebody, we got to take this step and that step. And also, so you can understand some of the costs to get things done, to know, hey, is property management up tiering me on cost? Like, hey, if I call a plumber or I get a flooring guy in and they give me a quote for $1,000, and now my property manager's saying, hey, it's going to cost $2,500, I can call BS on that because I managed the property before and I have people that have done that. So long story short, on the managing it yourself, I think everybody should start out managing their own properties themselves, at least up until you get to that 10 unit threshold or more. Now, when you pass that threshold, it starts to get a little more difficult and become almost like a second job, because there's always going to be something that's going on. It could be, hey, my neighbor's being loud, or hey, this rent payment is past due. And that's all stuff that would fall on your hands. And it's not something that you do every single day. And so I would say once you get over that 10 threshold, the benefit of moving to property management is that it's a lot less time utilized from your end. So for example, I moved to property management when I got to 15 units in Louisville. And prior to that, I was still managing those 15 units for about 6 months when I moved to Boston. That was tough, not gonna lie, right? I couldn't get eyes on any of the properties. I didn't have as many people to go and see it. I had my realtor that I was using to kind of go check it, take a look and take videos for me. But it was difficult because if I had an eviction, I had to call people from afar, try to build relationships from afar, and it wasn't really working out. And there was always something going on. I was spending literally probably 3 or 4 hours a day working on the properties. And as you know, I still got a day job, right? I gotta still focus on that. So moving over to property management took me from spending 3 to 4 hours a day working on it to initially maybe 2 or 3 hours a week, and then maybe 2 or 3 hours every 2 weeks. And now it's like 2 or 3 hours a month because I want it to be, right? We have monthly meetings where I check in, ask about this, they send emails in between, but that's the benefit. Now, choosing the property manager is tough. I can tell you that the first one I chose was not good. Okay. It was really not good. The first property manager I chose, I'll just give you one story to illustrate it. So when you have security deposits, you're supposed to keep those completely separate, right? You can't touch those legally. You will get in trouble. When I moved away from my first property manager, it took us 2.5 months and a letterhead from my lawyer in Louisville to get them to release the security deposits to us. It was crazy. It was like 15,000 that they had in security deposits. I don't know what they did with it. I think they were using it for something else, which you're not allowed to do, but that's just one story to illustrate. And they were a headache. Every day was like, what's going on? What's going on? I'm like, why did I move it? I should have just kept managing it. But when I found the second property management team, these guys had systems in place. They had everything automated. I can log in online and see exactly where the money's going, exactly what's happening at any time. I can message anybody and they get right back to me. And they have made my life so much easier. So much so that we were able to scale from 15 units to 25 units in a little less than a year. So we bought 10 more units under them. And now it's just plug and play, Nate. Now that I got a relationship with those guys and a team in Louisville, if I see a property that makes sense, I buy it. I'm literally not even at the closing table, right? They send the documents, I sign it remotely. My realtor goes to the closing table, picks up the keys and gives it to my property managers. My property managers walk the property. They give notices to all the tenants. They're doing all of that, right? They transition them over to our system. They collect the deposits. It's seamless. All I got to do is point out a property, sign, and move it over to them.
Well, thanks a lot for that. Definitely keep that in mind.
So that goes for what I was talking about there is long-term rentals. Now, as far as short-term rental, I would recommend managing that yourself because it's more active and I love it. It's actually kind of fun. And because I'm in sales, so it's kind of what I do anyway. But it's active and you're getting a rating every day, right? So you got to make sure that you're on it. You can, but you got to, like, I'm managing one for Matee now. That flip that I showed you, that it's now up and running into Airbnb, and we got a couple bookings. So I'm managing that for Matee, and I plan to do that for a couple others as I continue to build my portfolio. But short-term rentals, there's definitely a lot of cash to be made there. It's just a little more intensive.
Got you. And when you say short-term rentals, you're obviously referring to like Airbnb properties. And what are the kinds of rentals fall into that category, if you don't mind me asking?
So they fall into the short-term rental category?
Yeah. Would that be
so
like leases? Go ahead.
So you got like Airbnb, VRBO, Gigster, Peer Space. I think it's called Peer Space. Yeah, a couple places. It's all of the above with that. A short-term rental is defined as anything that's 28 days or less. And I actually just got a message on Gigster. I haven't got a booking yet because I'm pretty expensive on there. But have you heard of Gigster?
No, I haven't. It's the first time. I was going to ask you. I'm guessing those are all different platforms for getting a short-term rental, right?
It is. It is, but Airbnb or VRBO are similar. They're like short-term rental. Hey, I'm going to stay the night, couple nights. Gigster and Peerspace are like for, hey, we want to have a business networking event. Can we rent out your house? Or hey, we want to have a wedding party. Or a couple people have hit me up about filming in my house. Like, hey, we want to film something there. Like somebody hit me up today. They wanted to, and I have it pretty high, priced high. You can get a lot for it. So I have my house priced at 200 per hour for those type of events because it's still cheaper than an event space. And so this person, we're going back and forth. They wanted to film from 7 p.m. until 10 a.m., but they only wanted to pay from 7 a.m. till midnight. I was like, it's not going to work out. They wanted to pay like $1,200, which is not bad for one day. That's pretty good, right? I could pay like,
that's amazing.
But for me, I have it set for a certain amount. I'm like, hey, if you want to go 7 to midnight, we can do that for about $1,200. But if you want to go to the morning, it's going to be $3,000, right? So I'm still working on them. Maybe I can come down a little bit, but that is enough to like really jumpstart you. It's not bad.
Yeah, it's incredible. Definitely going to look into it. This is the first time I'm hearing of it. Seems like the short rental space is transforming rather quickly. I'm guessing this has it been around for that long?
It's been around on the West Coast. It's been around the West Coast. Yeah. So Atlanta recently became a hub for films. They're actually filming Black Panther 2 right now, like close to the neighborhood I live in, and a bunch of other films because they did like some tax credits there. And so it's starting to get bigger in Atlanta, but it's really only in places. I think Nashville will probably be a good spot for like photo shoots. I had somebody reach out to me. They want to do like a family photo shoot in a modern home, right? So that they can post that. I even had a TV show reach out that wants to do, what's the show called? It's My Celebrity Dream Wedding, something like that.
Got you. That one. Yeah, I'm aware of that one. Yeah.
Yeah. And they have a scene, they actually sent it to me where they film this every single time, but I didn't realize it's not an actual person's home because the people probably live far away, like not in the city and where everybody is for filming. So they hire a house, and the scene they wanted to film was literally they walk in, the couples are sitting on the couch, and then the designer or the wedding planner walks in and starts walking them through everything. And they wanted a nice backdrop, but they're just going to be sitting on the couch for like 3 hours filming.
Wow.
You know, I was like, hey, we could do that. So we're trying to set that up for, I think, November.
Got you.
But those are all different ways. Plus, another one is Furnished Finder, which is, I'm posted on there as well. And that is for mostly travel nurses. So travel nurses come for 13-week assignments. When they come for their 13-week assignment, they're looking for housing that's furnished. And they don't necessarily like Airbnb because it might be more expensive. But they check Furnished Finder, and it's a good way to get, you know, especially in the winter, if you want to get more consistent pay and you're good with taking a little bit less, it's good. Yeah. And if there's anything that changes with Airbnb law, it's a good way to still make a good amount of money because they get stipends without having to go to a traditional rental.
What did you call that again?
Furnished Finder.
Well, most of what you just shared with me is enough kind of homework to kind of dig into and make sure I got my head's wrapped around it. I think I've been kind of slacking on even keeping around. I didn't realize how many platforms were out there for short-term rentals. And I was just kind of like sitting here like, what have I been doing?
literally me either. And until I started doing it. And why would you? Because you got a million other things to think about. And so when you think about it like this, right? My whole thing is the best way to learn is just to get in. Like when you start renting, you're going to start thinking about, man, what about this question, that question? And we're going to be able to help with that. And once you learn that, it's going to be, you know, like riding a bike. It's like, all right, I can do this, you know? So that's why I'm so interested in the short-term rental game, because I see how many gains. I see like the ratings are going up. People are booking it up. It's a lot of plot doc coming my way. So I'm like, hey, this is great. And one other thing I meant to mention, right? So from an investment standpoint, if you wanted to buy a pure investment anywhere, it would cost you 20%, right? And you know that the bank's going to want a bit more down because you're not living in the house, right? That being said, if you were to do what I'm doing with a couple other people and do a quote unquote vacation home or secondary home, you can do that as long as it's 50 miles away from where you currently live or where your primary residence is. And you can put down 10%. And
Oh,
so
wow.
I've got 2 people that within the next probably 6 months or so, I'm going to work with them to do that in Atlanta. And I'm going to manage it, short-term rental. I'll furnish it and then manage the short-term rental. And then we'll split the profits and kind of go from there. And then if they need to use it, they use it, right? But that's another way. There's a couple ways to do it. Like I'm actually looking at other markets to see where I would want to do that because I'm good with a 10% down. I'm good with that.
Right. That'd be much better than 20%. Right.
Man, for this last one, I had to put down close to, well, I got lucky. I was able to put down 15%, but it was on a $460,000 house. So it
Yeah, that's
adds
a
up.
hit
It adds up.
quickly.
Yeah.
Yeah. So those, and then with the prices of homes going up, it's never that 20%, it's never going to be small, especially here, even in Nashville. I mean, unless you're looking for a property to flip, the average home is around 300. So even 10% of that is still kind of considerable. So if you're doing 20%, it gets even more interesting.
And the price is only going up with all the money that we poured into the market. Real estate is where all the hedge funds are turning to. And at the end of the day, the reason so many people turn to real estate and love it is it's also a protection against inflation, right? Like if anything inflates, prices go up, you just raise rent. Like, hey, rent goes up.
Yeah.
So it automatically goes up, right? That's one of the things.
Yeah.
Rent should always go up. You know, I usually do, I think 2.5% or 3% or something like that every single year, so that I don't get behind the 8 ball.
Wow. Just in case.
Yeah, and it should be, right? It does, like, because your costs are going to be going up for certain things, minus the mortgage. But yeah. So that house in Louisville, right? I keep coming back to that. The first one I bought, it started out being rented for $2,250, right? Total when I wasn't living there. And now, you know, when we sold it, it was renting for the highest it rented for was $2,850, but it was renting for like $2,700 a month at that time. And it's not that many years later. So it's just consistent raises, and the mortgage is still the same for the next 20 years. So imagine a 3% compounding interest every single year on the dollars you have coming in. It's pretty powerful.
Yeah, you can't beat that. You cannot beat that. But yeah, like I said, that's basically all my questions for right now. I know we're still kind of talking about the deal with Mattia and things like that, but as far as just the current frame of mind is just to get my head wrapped around the short-term rentals and really look into what it looks like to manage my own property and start doing a lot of research towards that end. And yeah.
Nate, I love it. Let's get to it, man. Let's get it.
Definitely. Thank you so much for the time on here. I'm assuming we're at time now, right? That's why I was.
We are, yeah, 7:45, man. I gotta go hang out with the bro. He's texting me right now. He's trying to go get some Pisco sour, which is basically like a whiskey sour at the bar.
Gosh.
I'm gonna go beat him. But Nate, it was good catching up, man. And when I get back in town, we definitely got to figure out when you can come up.
Yeah, let me know. And I'm sorry, I wish I was better communicated. I just kind of knew that I wasn't going to be able to make it last weekend. I just assumed I was going to text you when you came back from vacation because I knew you would be back this weekend. But I forgot you mentioned birthday weekend would take over the next.
Yeah.
And you did vocalize all of that to me. I just forgot.
No worries, man, because I have to keep reminding myself because things are popping up. I'm like, no, I promise. I don't do anything that weekend. Yeah.
Midnight checking your phone. You know, I just want to do a quick.
No, can't do it. I gotta stay away. Yeah.
Definitely. Hey, say hi to your bro for me.
Done.
Seen him in a while. We should definitely catch up when we get a chance to.
Done and done. Nate, be safe. And I'll let my bro know that you said what's up.
All right. Be safe, man. Bye.
Okay, and that was the episode with Nate Oboh. Thank you again for tuning in. If you like this, please like, comment, subscribe. We are a newer podcast and we're looking to grow over this next year. Our goal for 2022 is to be very consistent, releasing one podcast every single week, bringing you content that is actually impactful for you. So please give us some ratings, reviews, please like, please comment, please tell us what you do like, tell us what you don't like, so that we can continue to refine and get better throughout the year. Thank you so much, and I hope everybody has an awesome rest of the week.